masters, masters, masters of change.
Hello there. Welcome to Masters of Change. My name is Kim Cunio, and I'm the head of music at the Australian National University, and I'm here with my good friend Charlie Hogg. Charlie is the director of the Brahma Kumaris here in Australia, and we're getting together for spiritual conversations which we hope can help you as they help us. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Kim.
Well, we're thinking about beliefs. You know, before we get to that, I'd just like you to give us Being a Spiritual Person 101 course in 2 minutes. Why should we be spiritual?
You know, Kim, because I think it's our natural and original state that inherently we're spiritual, and the more I sort of forget my spirituality and I sort of think I'm a material body and the reality is out there, then I sort of fundamentally lose my happiness. There's a sense that my happiness is going.
This is an interesting introduction, isn't it? Because it's the essence of it all, isn't it?
Yeah.
That we all have the ability to keep our happiness, but somehow we get caught up in the illusion that maybe someone let me down.
Yeah.
And so today's episode is, interestingly, we have a fun title for it, The Blame Game. But maybe, so what is the blame game? What do we do, Charlie?
Well, I hold others responsible for how I feel. And so it's become an incredibly deep culture in our world today, isn't it? That I point the finger, you said this, you did this, you. And yet once I remember I was in India and someone said to me, when you point the finger there, you've got at least 3, if not 4, pointing back at yourself, you know, because actually I think why do we blame? Because if I can't fix a problem, deep down I feel a bit of a failure, you know. Let's say I'm not getting on with another person, we're not having a good relationship. Deep down I feel, why can't I get on? Why can't I? So it may not be conscious, so I put the responsibility on you for this problem. So the culture to really move away from taking responsibility and putting all the blame on the other, on every level of life we're finding it at the moment. So everyone's passing the buck to everyone else. Whereas I would say at the heart of spirituality is the fundamental truth or belief that I am responsible for how I feel. And I believe if we live our life with that truth, then, you know, we can deal with a lot of this passing of the buck, the culture of blame and the culture of pointing the finger.
Charlie, this is very, very interesting because as you said it, I had an image of us as selfish little children.
Yeah.
And this is what we all are in some level, you know. And when we see, you know, we can be outside and we can see a young child and they're blaming their mother often for the most inconsequential things. And we go, oh, well, that's just a child, so it's okay. Little realising that as we grow up, we do the same thing, but in a more subtle way.
We do, Kim, we absolutely do. And we, even sometimes we may not verbalise it, but mentally, I'm always sort of blaming the other from how I feel. And to be frank, on my spiritual journey, when I sort of really started, I realised so deeply that blame is falsehood. Whenever I'm blaming, I'm putting myself under the influence of falsehood. I've stepped out from truth. I'm deceiving myself. And yet, it's so easy to do. It's just even mentally something's happening and I just say, why? You know, you're the one who's sort of creating this scenario. But actually, I feel the more I take responsibility, I can heal and change things. The more I put it back on you, I'm almost like making myself powerless to bring change in the world. And that's what's happening at the moment. We're just sort of, we give power to these problems and blame them, and then I sort of disempower myself, whether it's in my own individual life or society or the world to do anything about it. It's because of them. The problem is because of them.
Yes, Charlie, it's a story, and there's a story within the story, so that the first layer of the story is like, you're wrong, I'm right, just be like I would like you to be, and all will be okay. And we all know it never works like that. It might work for a minute or a day, but inevitably they do something wrong again, because really the problem is me.
Yeah.
And the problem seems to me, this is the story within the story, the problem is that really on some level, I often have a very low sense of self-esteem.
Yes.
So I don't actually trust myself.
Yeah.
And that's possibly because I don't have this ongoing spiritual relationship that can nourish me. So I want to ask you then, the big question is, if first of all this really is the problem, and it's quite a big problem, how can we be the fixers?
Well, it's amazing actually, Kim, isn't it? Because often we will blame everybody, but deep down I'm blaming myself all the time too. And I think that you and we've been having wonderful conversations and this fundamental healing of relationship with the self. And a part of that is when I observe myself sort of making mistakes or not living up to my own expectations, and then putting myself down on blaming myself for the things going wrong. That is, a really horrible feeling inside. And I've really got to learn how to first, I think one of the things I learned on my spiritual journey really early on, I'm in a process of change. I have to be gentle with myself, I became very body conscious because I didn't really know who I was, extremely body conscious. So all these things like the culture of blame are the product of a false state of mind. And so it takes time to heal. So rather than always blaming others, blaming the self, which I think is probably blaming the self, even when I put someone down, I may gossip and put someone down, but deep down, I know that's not right and I blame myself too. And one thing I heard in the teachings of the Brahma Kumaris, which I really love and I often remind myself, the one who is content experiences everyone to be blameless. That's so powerful for me, so powerful.
Charlie, I'm going to ask you a favour. I'd like you to say that again, and we all just sit and absorb that beautiful teaching for 20 seconds.
The one who is content experiences everyone to be blameless. And so it's almost like when I'm in my state of self-value, self-awareness, self-respect, living as a soul, others will behave in different ways, but I won't blame them, I won't point the finger. And I think that's such a freedom and really is such a healing thing in my relationships with others too.
Charlie, this whole episode has made me think that on some level we're addicted to gambling. It's like a funny sort of gambling.
Yeah.
You meet someone, and I wanted to say, I don't want to be flippant here, it's a very, very serious problem for millions and millions of people. So if you know someone who suffers from a gambling addiction, please take this very, very seriously. There is help in nearly every country that is available, because there are too many stories of people and it starts small and then essentially they gamble away the house or the inheritance. And so we're not talking on that level, but it's like we're gambling, we're giving our power and something that's worth far more than money. We're giving our self-esteem to the whimsical nature of the wheel of someone else's emotions.
Yeah.
And so someone else is actually turning the wheel, and then we just say, well, I don't like how the wheel's turned and I'm going to be in agony for the next week. This seems to me to be very short-sighted.
They say, Kim, only victims blame. So I put myself in a victim consciousness. This happened, I'm the victim of this situation and these people's behaviours. And so I justify this attitude of blame and pointing the finger, because for whatever reason, this victim consciousness is so powerful in our world at the moment, where we all feel victims because of skin colour and gender and 100 different reasons that I feel a victim. And yet, really, if I take off the temporary nature. There's a lot of bad things that do happen, let's be real, but still, if I feel a victim, I put myself in a place of suffering. And when I'm not a victim, actually I can do something about changing at least my state of mind to deal with these attitudes that sometimes, or judgments, which we all experience at different times, no matter who we are. We are labelled by some.
And Charlie, this is, I think you've answered really one of the biggest questions that would come up here, which is, if I'm not going to blame others, am I just allowing the injustices of the world to continue? And you've just said to us, no, I'm not.
No.
I can still take action against injustice. If I want to be an activist of any sort, I can be an activist. I can work to alleviate world hunger, world bigotry, all of the things that really are holding us back. But yet at the same time, I still have that emotional detachment to see the other as my brother. This is profound, because it seems to stop the burnout that so many of us feel.
Yeah. It's a really brilliant point, because I think that's true activism. Because you see something wrong, but you're acting in a place of benevolence rather than anger and hatred. Because the anger and hatred activism just polarizes the parties, doesn't it? But if I sort of, at least I'm coming from a place of, trying to resolve something rather than really saying you are the problem and you have to change, then actually that's a healing energy. Because I just find that the more my activism is based on that anger, the egos get really offended, and the egos become more and more stubborn in my position. I am right and you are wrong. And that's the world, isn't it? That I am right and you are wrong, and we're just trying to prove myself to be right. I think a spiritual person will never feel they really have to prove themselves. You don't have to prove the truth, as they say.
Yes, and it's so easy to separate ourselves from others, isn't it? Sometimes it's a funny word, I find, this dual notion. It's like the self is here and the other is there. But it seems like once we start this process of separating ourselves from others, it's too easy to blame.
It is.
And I know that you know a way to heal that separation. What is that way?
I feel that we've talked in so many different layers of this journey from body consciousness to soul conscious, because when I really know and experience that I am the eternal soul, I start to see you as a soul too. And rather, when I see you as a body, I may judge you and blame you, but when I see you as a soul, I see you as a traveller like me. We've all accumulated a bit of a karmic story. Sometimes we come under the influence of our past actions. We don't behave as well as we could, or we do things wrong, but you understand that and you have compassion. And I found incredibly, the more you sort of offer compassion and forgiveness, the person improves. The more you blame and criticize, the person even gets worse. It's reverse psychology, really.
So instead of blaming, we can inspire.
Yes.
And I just wanted to say that again, because I get goosebumps when I think about that, because inspiring means that I can only inspire someone if my actions are pure and wholesome, if my self-esteem is pure, that I'm having a living relationship with something higher than my immediate desires. And then by virtue of that, slowly other people might say, that person's not trying to change me, but I quite like them. What are they doing that I could do? And it seems like it's a much longer but more gentle way to bring change about in our world.
It really is, Kim. And, we're talking on a very high level, aren't we, really, to be so benevolent. But I really do feel that it's the key is this real sense of real living relationship with God. That has such an influence on my behaviour and my outlook. Because, I think all of us have that feeling that God's vision is so benevolent and for everyone. And it's sort of, I don't know, when I find that when my vision gets critical or negative towards somebody, deep down, I just know I've stepped out of my truth. I'm under some other influence. I don't feel very comfortable, you know. And that's the thing, the more you, I think, practice soul consciousness, when you step outside the boundaries of how you want to be, you know, it's almost like you warn yourself, your conscious kicks in, conscience, and it says, be careful, you're sort of stepping over your values and principles of how you want to behave in life.
So really what you're saying is, Charlie, once we start to lead this life, a whole lot of other subtle things start to happen. It's like it's a bit of like an ecosystem around us that sustains us.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that idea.
Yeah.
It's like these innate attributes that we have start to blossom. It's like we're growing a garden around ourselves. And the garden sustains us in our daily life. You know, I love it.
Yeah, so do I. I love your gardening analogy, because in a way, the soul is a seed. Sow the seed, and it starts to grow a trunk, branches into a whole new perception of each part of life. Relationships is different, health is different, concept of death and dying. It's almost like you rebuild a more eternal perception of what is, rather than this very temporary perception which I've got when I sowed the seed. When the seed was, I'm a temporary body, it grows a whole tree of false thinking and perception. But what your great analogy, it's just like, sow the seed of this soul. And that's where sometimes I think on this journey you think, oh my God, there's so much to do and think and understand. Actually, the fundamental thing, the more I practice and live and experience myself to be an eternal bodiless soul, it almost all begins to just emerge naturally, a whole new perception of self, perception of relationships, perception of life, perception of what is a priority, what is important. Like we were saying, that I will use things, but I'm not going to sort of over-accumulate, etc. It's a natural consequence when I'm in this right state of, or original state, I should say, of consciousness.
Charlie, one of the things I found beautiful when I come to the centre is I increasingly see families coming.
Yeah.
And it's a very beautiful thing that a whole family comes to take a bit of benefit in the centre, because everyone together starts to see that, yes, I have a role in a family, but yet I don't really need to blame the other people in the family for the things that go wrong, that we're a unit and we forgive each other, and really in the end, we've got this wonderful alliance together.
Yes.
And I've been shocked at how easily kids can understand this.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say, what's your experience been like in similar things?
Yeah, I think that, you know, a family usually has the thing, my wife, my husband, my child, and then we all begin to understand, actually we're souls, and we're all souls on a journey together, and we're all now respecting each other as eternal souls. So of course we play the roles because mum and dad need to look after the kids, but I think it just changes a whole dynamic, because that possessiveness polarizes and creates these love-hate relationships and all that sort of thing. But, you know, the sense that, you know, we support each other in that soul-conscious way, it creates such a nice feeling. You know, I was once talking to one couple who were telling me that, you know, before they really started to think and practice to be souls, they had such a tense relationship. And then when they started to see each other as souls, the respect for each other grew enormously. And so it became, what was a really difficult relationship became a very sort of respectful, loving, and more detached relationship. And in one sense, perhaps, as we were been discussing, the more they were sort of, when I say detached, less influenced by each other, the more they could have respect for each other.
It's like an antidote to this funny thing that happens, that often the people we're closest to can push our buttons the best. It's like they've been programmed with the hidden key, you know, like and yet you're saying that by getting this deep soul-conscious respect for the other, that we can actually lessen that ability of others to press our buttons.
Yeah, absolutely, Kim. And I think, you know, I really feel too, we really learn the beauty of the other. And that's more in my vision, because you know how distorted, when I lose self-respect, and I see the other, all I can see is all the faults and all the things you've done to me that are not good. This completely distorted vision. Yet I feel it's the reality. And yet, the more I'm soul-conscious, I actually see all the lovely things you've done for me over the years and the way you've helped me, the way you've supported me. Yes, we've had our moments, we've had our differences, that's absolutely normal. But when you really focus on the value, it gives a support to a sustainable relationship. It becomes, it's not going to sort of break apart because of this chronic negative feeling we have for each other.
Charlie, this is incredible. When you were speaking, I was thinking of someone we both know who's a psychotherapist who once said to me, one of our problems is that when we get into a relationship, we want to make that other person exactly like us.
Yes.
And then if we fail, it's a failure. And if we succeed, it's also a failure. Because it's rather boring just being with ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So wanted to say this has been such a really beautiful discussion on our slightly humorous title for a very serious thing of why it is that we react so much to others. It's been a wonderful discovery of ideas, but it's always not quite complete until you take us on a meditation, dear Charlie.
Let me sit quietly and turn within. In life, we are taught that what is important is out there. Where I will find love is out there. Where I will find happiness is out there. And this is why sometimes when we sit to meditate, my mind keeps jumping out there because of the deep programming that love, peace, and happiness is outside. But now I realize that everything I need I can find inside, in my relationship with God. Let me remember the divine. In a relaxed way, just hold the image of light in your mind. Such a beautiful light, a radiant jewel, the eternal form of the divine. This is an eternal and constant source of everything I need. And if I just sit and absorb this deeply, whenever I need love, whenever I need peace, whenever I need happiness, I just need to go to one source. I, the bodiless soul, resonate in connection with my eternal parent, my spiritual mother and my spiritual father. I feel nurtured. I feel cared for. I feel respected. And the more I feel nourished deeply, my mind begins to stop the habit of wandering, of looking, of constantly searching outside for everything I need inside. I am a peaceful soul. I am a loving soul. I am a soul that is full of happiness. Om Shanti.
Dear friends, we've sat and we've slowed down with Charlie. We've started to really think in meditation that this is possible, that we can be a peaceful soul in our daily life. This is a great thing. I just want to put my hand on my heart and say to you, you can be a peaceful soul in this life. And Charlie is nodding at you. We believe it. All of us have the same innate capacity to do this. This is what being a soul is. It's not that this one is more capable of finding peace than that one. All of us have that inheritance. And so with that idea, we can go beyond the blame game. We can see those we meet in our lives as our teachers, our friends, our companions, knowing that inevitably there's going to be some problem at some point. And that's okay, because we are putting in place the great relationship with the self and with the Supreme that can nourish us. This is a great, great, exciting story. I want to thank you for it, Charlie, because it's a truth to me.
Thank you, Kim. Lovely to be with you once again.